Welcome to Realtors Unfiltered, where we pull back the curtain on the world of real estate. No fluff, no filters, just real stories, real advice, and the realities of buying, selling, and everything in between. This is your host, Enas. Whether you're a client looking for your dream home or an agent seeking inspiration and insight, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. Today I have someone joining me who completely gets the chows of juggling life, work, family, all the things. Daniela Wolfe is a mom, full-time professional, burnout coach, trainer, and speaker. She's the author of Balance Breakthrough and hosts Bestie Life with Daniela podcast with over 200 episodes. She's local to Buffalo, which makes this chat even more special. Daniela, welcome. And let's get into it.
Thank you so much, Enas.
Can you share your background and what led you to start Bestie Life?
Absolutely. Like you said, I've been a social worker for almost 30 years, so professionally trained in all things mindfulness, stress management, coping skills, all of that, as well as, like you said, I was a mom of two. And almost 20 years ago, when my kids were super little, 4 and 6 months old, I went through a divorce. So I was a single working mom, trying to do it all, be it all, prove that I was capable, show that I could handle everything. So I was not great at asking for help and drove myself straight into my own burnout. I was irritable. I was snapping. I was not showing up as the woman and mom that I wanted my kids to remember growing up. So I intentionally started to practice what I help everybody else with. It started with a very small gratitude practice every single day, just listing 3 to 5 things I was grateful for. At the time, our grocery store Wegmans had free childcare, which was fantastic. So I would put them in there, as well as I joined a gym with free childcare, and slowly began making these changes, working on my mindset when I would run into people and be like, oh, where are the kids? And not feeling like I had to justify why I put them in the childcare and didn't have them with me. That gratitude piece of taking some time for myself, working out, and just pouring back into myself. I found not only was I showing up better and different, but so were my kids too. I was doing better at work, and people were gravitating and asking, what was I doing? How was I fitting this in? Or sharing with me moments that they took for themselves because of something I said or did. And I realized, I think we're all looking for that validation and permission that it's okay to take time for ourselves. And that's when I really felt like I wanted to share this message with as many people as I possibly could. And slowly over time, like you said, between the podcast and speaking and just being who I am, I'm getting that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Us, especially moms, we have a lot of guilt that goes with that, but you can't pour from an empty cup. I always say that.
Yeah, no. And yeah. I think sometimes we think that pouring into ourselves has to be like a huge gallon jug, but just even putting micro moments and drips in throughout our entire day are just as powerful, if not more so, in keeping our own cup filled up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, where does the D in Bestie Life stand for or came from?
Actually, it's just from a nickname from when I was younger. People would just call me D instead of Daniela. And one of my friends who had reached out to me, she's like, I listened to my inner D. And she had gone and sat at the beach and read a couple pages from a book rather than running around and doing errands while her daughter was at a practice. And so I just kind of felt like that D can represent whatever it is to you, whether it's my voice, your inner D, your best darn life, your best determined life, your best detangled life, your best de-stressed life. That D is what you choose to make it, but it can be your best darn life possible.
I love where it really started and what it could mean right now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something different for everybody at different moments in time. And so it doesn't always look the same. We go through different seasons in life, from where I was when my kids were super little to now I'm an empty nester and all my kids are out of the house. I know you're expecting your first grandchild. Like, we all go through different seasons, and our lives look very different, and how we take care of ourselves and how we're doing things at those different stages.
Yes, absolutely. And even being an empty nester doesn't mean you're less busy.
Oh my gosh, I think my kids are more work sometimes as young adults than when they were younger.
I would agree with that. What were you seeing in other women or moms that made you say, enough, I need to create a better system for this? Like, I understand how you started with your own journey, but what made you feel like I need to create a system? I need to share this in a more structured, professional way with people?
I don't think it's even just moms. I think in general, we were normalizing being overwhelmed, being stressed, that hustle culture. You run into a friend, oh, how are things going? Oh, busy. And they just start listing off the things that they're doing and really not sharing who they are, how they're doing, what they're looking forward to, what's happening in their own life. And so we get caught up in this identity of having to be busy all the time rather than just, being productive, enjoying our lives, and just being ourselves. I saw a quote once about, are you a human being or a human doing? And always doing things and letting that define us, I think really robs us of who we are. And, like I said, I'm talking to so many people, and a lot of times women, but even men I've met with recently, they realize after the fact is when they realize, I don't even know who I am anymore. If I'm not defined by my job or my kids or those kind of things, you don't remember what you like to do for fun, what your hobbies are. And that disconnect is then where we feel that gap, that kind of emptiness of who am I and what am I doing all this for? Mm-hmm. And so, that's a lot of where it started.
That's such a good point. I definitely do that when people ask me, how am I doing? I list all the things that I'm doing, but not really how I'm doing or
how
anything
are you
else.
feeling? Yeah. What are you looking forward to? What's something you're excited about? That's really how you're doing. Those other things, they're just tasks on a to-do list that you could do or somebody else could do. And it doesn't really keep us connected in that same way.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would be your advice to someone who's so used to doing and that's how they're defined? Mm-hmm. Like now, if I have to sit and think, okay, if I'm not doing all the things, what would I do with my time? I might be bored out of my mind. Like, I don't, what's your advice to someone like that? Especially people like me, realtors in the market, right? We're used to working 7 days a week. We're used to receiving calls, messages, emails 24/7, truly 24/7.
Yeah.
I'm not even exaggerating about that. So what would be your advice?
I mean, it definitely starts with that intention of, I want to create a different lifestyle. I want my life to look differently. And when you do, there's 3 areas that I kind of help people focus on in order to make that transformation. It involves your mindset, your time planning, and your self-care. Because I believe when you think differently, you feel differently. When you feel differently, you act differently, which is why we start with that mindset piece. Because again, if you just go straight to those self-care actions, even though they're great, you can go through checking off all the stuff on the list and be like, I still don't feel any different. Mm-hmm. So we have to look at what are the thoughts around, whether it's how you set up your time, your boundaries, how you work, what's your priorities are in your life, and where did they come from? Sometimes it can be ingrained in us from when we're little kids. You think of our parents and their work ethic, where you had to be on 24/7 in order to prove you were committed, those kind of things, and really kind of looking how to break those down, how to change the conversation in your head, because we talk to ourselves 98% of the time, we more than anybody else in our whole entire life. And yet we're never as kind with ourselves as we are with the people around us. And so how to start to change that conversation so that you are treating yourself as kind, that you're able to be like, you know what? I don't have to earn a break. I deserve a break. Yeah. Those kind of changing that I should and I have to I get to, or even just adding the word yet opens up that growth mindset of possibility. You don't have to be great at everything yet, but there's always options and possibilities. So starting by changing the way you're thinking, even just positive affirmations, those types of things. I have some on my sticky notes on my bathroom mirror in the morning, and it just kind of can help create new neural pathways in your brain when you repeat these things over again, so that in times of stress and things like that, we don't default to some of those old, maybe not so positive ways of thinking, and are able to change into a more positive way. And then we look at your time. How are you setting up your day? Where's your work-life balance? And when I talk about balance, it's not about everything being equal, but it's about how you adapt, pivot, have resilience and boundaries. And I know we can dive into that a little bit more, but when you can see finding balance from a different way It allows you to plan your time in a way that has some breathing room between appointments, that has some ease to it, but you still get done the things you have to do and then have that space for self-care throughout your day.
And I love how you said the word yet. Not there yet.
Yep.
Yes.
I haven't traveled everywhere yet, but I have a list.
Right. Daniela, your book, Balance Breakthrough, is such a timely read. Who did you write it for, and what makes it different from other self-help books out there?
So I wrote it for the person like me, the high achieving who wanted to do well, but not lose themselves in the process. The person that I used to be, who probably could have used this book 20 years ago when I was in that place. It's written kind of like the way I talk a little bit. So, it sounds like you're just kind of hanging out with me while you're reading the book. It's for the busy professional, and your profession might be a full-time parent. Your profession might be a full-time caregiver to your parents. There's different ways that, we spend our days, and that just because you don't always get paid for it by somebody else doesn't make it any less important and serious and those kind of things. And we can still lose ourselves in that.
Absolutely.
It's a really hands-on, do-it-yourself kind of playbook. I didn't want to gatekeep any of this information. I throw everything in there that you would get working with me personally, because some people, maybe they're not ready to work with a coach, or they like that idea of taking it at their own pace and breaking it down. And so the book is broken into two parts. The first part looks at the problem. What is burnout? What is work-life balance? And then how, do we look at our mental fitness, which I think gets overlooked a lot of times. We can focus on physical fitness when it comes to wellness, but when it comes to our wellness, our mental fitness is just as important. It's how we build our resilience. And so there's so many parallels between, your physical fitness. You go to the gym, you work out with a trainer, you're looking to build strength over time through consistent action so that you can climb the stairs, run after your kids, those kind of things, and stay active. And so our mental fitness, again, it's practices that we repeat. You can work with a coach or a trainer to help you build that mental strength so that when life happens, you bounce back. You have the ability to work through and, again, find that balance through adapting, pivoting, and handling what life hands you so that you don't get totally then broken down in the process.
I love the idea of working with a trainer. In this case, it would be a coach, right? Like yourself, because it also helps you be accountable, or maybe recognize things that you're not recognizing on your own and do it in a proper form, maybe.
Yeah, that's the thing. So many times it seems like it's common sense, but like you said, having that person with that bird's eye view who's not in the middle of it can give you the perspective, can help hold the mirror to show you what the proper form is, to help you get those results quicker too, because you're not spending so much time, getting lost or going in the wrong direction or maybe focusing on the wrong thing. They're going to help you streamline that process so that you are heading directly to where you need to be going in the best, most efficient, fastest way possible. So it's, not a matter of will you get there, but these different avenues of how you work with me would be when would you get there, so that's the first part of the book. And then the second part is the whole exhausted to empowered formula. And so we break down your mindset, your time planning, and your self-care into actionable steps. There's self-assessment checklist parts. There's a digital workbook that goes with the whole book. There's step-by-step process so you can actually start taking action at every phase of this journey that you're on and start making these small habit changes in your day-to-day life.
I love what you just said, because no one can change overnight, and you can't change your whole lifestyle overnight. It's the little steps.
It's so micro small. And so many times, people talk about they make New Year's resolutions or intentions or goals, and a lot of times they don't succeed because we try and make it too big versus just focusing on one small micro piece of it. You're not going to, say you're going to run a marathon this year and go out and run 26 miles. You're going to start with walking around the block and, hoping you can make it back to your couch, and then maybe jogging a little bit. and you build it slowly to the point that then at the end it looks easy, and that's what people see a lot of times and assume, oh, you got there just like that, without seeing all the micro steps along the way that got you there.
That you put into it, of course. The way you're describing it right now, I pictured a baby when they first like try to stand up, then they take one step and fall, two steps and fall a couple times, until they learn how to walk. So it's almost the same way. You have to take like little steps until you build that strength to be able to do it all.
Absolutely. And just like that too, once you start to do it repetitively, it becomes so automated, you don't even have to think of the steps anymore. And again, that's where it looks so simple and easy without seeing the intention that goes into it in the beginning.
Yeah. So you created the method called Exhausted to Empowered, and you just touched on that a little bit. What does that look like in action? Give us a few examples.
So it's kind of an overlap of your mindset, your time planning, and your self-care. They don't necessarily all work in isolation. Like I said, we start with that mindset piece, start building some different thought processes in, so that then when we start to change your time, you're not freaking out because your day is not incredibly packed, from beginning to end. We use a tool called the Eisenhower Matrix to really help you break down your priorities, what's truly important and urgent. Because if you put everything in that quadrant, all of a sudden it's all watered down and nothing's really important. Right. But in addition to that piece, you look at what's important and not urgent. What's urgent but not important? What can you delegate? What don't you have to be the person doing? And then what's completely unimportant and unurgent and should probably leave your calendar? And once you break that down, you can start to really intentionally plan your time and block specific areas of your day to work. Maybe, if you work best in the morning, because that's when you're more focused, to put some harder tasks there and really be intentional, but then also leave that space between things so you're not stacked back to back to back. 2 reasons for that. One is because if life happens, which it does a lot of times, I can think of spilling my coffee on myself walking out the door or different things like that. You have some space to handle it so that you can use that adapt and pivot part of that balance to be able to kind of work through it, and it doesn't throw off your entire day.
Right.
But also, if nothing goes wrong, now you have space for those micro moments of self-care that I talked about. You've got 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Just like you charge your phone at various points throughout your day, you eat several times a day because you don't just have one big meal and think you're going to be set for the day. It's the same with your self-care. When you're recharging, because self-care isn't just about being calm and zen, it's where your confidence comes from. It's where your energy comes from. It helps you show up in a way that's going to be contagious and, affect the people around you. So when you're putting that self-care throughout your day, is how you stay in a place that then as life happens, you're able to respond rather than react. Right. And so that last piece, that self-care of the formula, a lot of times when people hear the word self-care, they think spa days, massages, getaways, which I love, but they're not sustainable. I can't eat on Sunday and think I won't be starving by Tuesday. I can't do self-care once on the weekend and think I'm good for the week. And so self-care, it's really from a practical standpoint, from everything from how you eat, how you sleep, how you move, how you dress, how you decorate and organize your home, how you think about money, how you connect with others, as well as that traditional personal development of meditation, mindfulness, journaling, gratitude, those types of things. When you see these different options, you're able to now see how it can fit in so many different ways throughout your day.
Right.
So
if I have an extra, to your point,
yeah.
if I didn't spill coffee on myself today and now I have an extra 10 minutes, how am I utilizing that for self-care?
Oh my gosh, I thought of like 3 different things just as you said that. Yeah. You can start with even just holding your actual cup of coffee that you have and feel the warmth of the coffee in the mug, smell it, taste it, savor that taste, feel what it's like going down your throat. That's a mindfulness practice. You could use those 10 minutes to maybe connect with an old friend that you've been thinking about that you haven't talked to and just send them a quick text. You can go outside for part of that 10 minutes, and just being outside in nature has so many benefits. You can do 10 minutes and organize that drawer that's been bothering you, just one drawer. But when you set a timer for 10 minutes, it's amazing how many things you can accomplish in that small bit of time. I have a free resource on my website. It's called the Reclaim Your Time in 10-Minute Blocks cheat sheet. And it literally has over 20 ideas of what to do when you have those 10 minutes. Because if you don't have a plan, so many times it's when we can scroll on our phone, throw a load of laundry in, and then lose that time that we could have used in such a positive way.
Yeah. Can you share with us the website that you just mentioned?
Sure. It's bestdlife.com. And so I have all sorts of free resources on there, as well as access to blog posts, my podcast, and so many different ways that we could work together.
Okay. And we would love to talk more about the myth and balance of burnout. Daniela, I would love to talk a little bit more about what balance actually looks like in your full-time mother, coach, professional, and how you do your own self-care. What does a day in Daniela's life look like?
Yeah. So while every day doesn't look exactly the same, there are some pillars that are pretty consistent every single day. I always start and end my day with me. And so in the morning, I always include some movement, some meditation. And that might look different, though, depending on some days I have 10 minutes, some days I have 40 minutes, but there's 5-minute yoga practices. There's 4-minute HIIT workouts. I can do 5-minute meditation. Some days I do a 40-minute yoga. There's so many different ways, but it happens every single day. And the same with the end of my day. I always do my skincare and I read from an actual hard book. And some days it's 3 sentences. Some days it's 3 paragraphs or 3 pages. But it's the consistency of the fact that both of those things happen every single day, regardless of what my day looks like, is one part that always keeps it consistent for me. I use my time on my commute to either listen to podcasts, or my son calls me on his way home from work every day.
I love that.
So again, we have that connection, as well as, talking about my son, my kids. Having grown up with me while I was going through this journey, I found, kids always, they do what you do and not what you say. And we've talked about the fact that, so many of the practices they have now when it comes to how they handle stress, how they take care of themselves, came from learning these things that I think, again, we're not taught in school. And so if we're not practicing them, our kids are learning, again, that hustle, that overwhelm, those types of things.
Right.
So, I fit in those types of things. I always plan my meals. I don't plan the whole meal on Sunday, but I do some meal prep to keep it simple so that a lot of my grab and goes are going to be in a way that feels good for me. I set myself up for success with sleep, part of that nighttime routine and things like that, because all of those self-care areas, they snowball and they can affect each other, almost like a wheel going down the road. If one of your areas is out of alignment, you're going to still roll down the road, but you're going to feel that bump. Think of like if you're stressed about money, you might not get a good night's sleep. If I don't get a good night's sleep, I crave carbs the next day, so I don't eat great. I'm not going to want to move as much. I'm not as motivated. Plus, I'm cranky and I don't connect well with others. And so you can see how having some of these practices don't just help that one area, but they snowball into how I affect other areas. When I came to see you today, I planned my outfit ahead of time in something that I feel good, that I feel confident in, that I wanted to show up in versus, a pair of leggings and a sweatshirt. Not that I don't love those and they're comfortable, but I probably wouldn't have the same energy based on how I'm feeling, what I'm wearing. And then just, I set my house up in a way that's my sanctuary. That's my safe place that I get to just unwind and be me. Is it Martha Stewart perfect? Nope, it's not. I live there.
Nothing has to be perfect.
No, I live there and it looks like I live there. But I have elements in there that make me feel calm, that make me feel comfortable, that I know I can, snuggle in wintertime, at least when it's cold, have a soft blanket that I really enjoy with a candle that I love the scent of, and have my favorite cup of tea and things like that. So again, creating these little micro pieces throughout my day, even at my office, I have a lot of the quotes up that I love. I love quotes. And so I have a quote wall, and just surround myself with those different elements so that I'm not necessarily shutting off between who I am at home and who I am at work, but they're a blend of me throughout my entire day.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because it doesn't have to be something fancy or expensive, right? Mm-hmm. We can all afford to print out some quotes and put them on our walls. Yep. We can all afford a cup of tea at the end of the night, yep. So I absolutely love that.
Go for a walk on your lunch hour. Like there's so many micro, small, like you said, super affordable, simple ways to add these things in, and they don't have to be done alone. That's the other part. I think people think it has to be alone or in isolation. Laughter, loud, being with other people, great forms of self-care.
Yeah. Yeah. I love taking a walk with my dogs in the morning. I just, and to your point, I listen to a podcast or a book during that time. And I notice that on those days that I do that, I'm much more focused and probably more enjoyable to be around.
Oh yeah, you're more focused, you're more creative, you're more productive. You actually end up being more successful, making more money, taking less sick time from work when you start doing these practices.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing you said that really resonated with me is you lead by example, whether it's your, potentially people you work with, potentially your children. People mimic your behavior, especially if they look up to you a certain way, especially your kids, right? They do.
Or your team at work too.
Right.
If they see that you're sending emails at 9, 10 o'clock at night, they're going to feel like they have to read them and respond to them. They're going to feel like they have to be on all the time. So you set that example for how this is going to look.
Yeah. And even in my industry, it's a 24/7, but I have my own boundaries for myself. That after a certain hour, I'm not looking at my emails. I might respond to an urgent text if one comes up, but if it's not urgent, I'm making it wait till the morning because it also trains other people how to treat you and how to respect your time. Yes. Once in a while there's something urgent, if a house is on fire.
That's that adapting and pivoting and those kind of things. But those boundaries, they're not a no. They're a yes to the things you say yes to. Yes. And even just putting a simple automatic reply, hey, thanks so much for reaching out to me. I respond between 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. You let go of that guilt and that expectation because you've communicated when you're available, when you're going to respond. So no one's sitting there waiting, checking every 5 minutes for you.
I think also setting the right expectations with whether it's family, friends, or clients and, workmates. Setting the right expectations from the beginning. Like I will answer my phone between certain hours, another hour. If something's urgent, I'll get to you as soon as I'm able. People respect that and know what they expect. So they're less anxious when you're not getting back to them immediately or when you're not available immediately. It's okay to have your own boundaries.
Yes. The more you have your own boundaries and you're confident in them, the more that does set the expectation of what's going to happen going forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, quick question for you. Yeah. What's one self-care habit you never, ever skip?
Probably, I would say my movement in the morning. Like I said, even if it's just 5 minutes, I always fit something in.
Yeah.
Something, whether it's stretching, whether it's, even like you said, walking the dogs, there's always some kind of movement to begin my day.
Gets your blood flowing, gets your, lymphatic system flowing, all of it.
It gets my creativity flowing. There's so many times when I'm not focused on work that I get these great ideas. And I love using my Siri to just be like, Siri, take a note and just get it out of my head. And then I can keep doing whatever I'm doing. But that's when I get so many great breakthroughs.
Yeah. I'm a Siri person too. It looks like I'm talking to myself all day, but I love it because it could do the reminders and all of that. And I'm not stressing about it. I know it's there. I can go back to it at the time that I designated to go back to it. Yeah. One book or podcast that's actually inspiring you right now?
Oh, goodness. There's so many. I'm part of a book club where we're rereading You're a Badass by Jen Sincero, which I love. And I'd read it forever ago and I totally forgot so many of the great breakthroughs in there. So professionally, I'm reading that one. There was a book called Joyful by Ingrid Fattel-Lee that I truly love as well. She really breaks down happiness into these micro moments of joy, again, from color, from all textures, all these different things you don't realize are part of what makes our happiness. And The Midnight Library by Matt Haig would be a personal book that I truly enjoyed.
Yeah, I love that. I did read Badass a long time ago too, but I should go back to it now that you just mentioned it. But I'll link all those books for everybody here. What's one thing you're still working on yourself?
So many things. I think
what's your
some
top priority
of the limiting
right now?
beliefs right now of that self-judgment, letting go of a lot of those pieces that I think are just kind of ingrained what I assume other people might be thinking. So letting go of those limiting beliefs. I'm always a work in progress. They say new level, new devil. And yeah.
New level, new devil. Where can people find your book, the Burnout Quiz?
Yeah.
If they want to connect with you for coaching.
My website is the best place for that Bestie Life. There's a link to Amazon, but it is on Amazon and Barnes & Noble that you can find the book. You can reach out to me, send me an email at daniela@bestielife.com. Plus, I'm on all the social medias, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest, and definitely would love to just hear what you're working on. I have free coaching calls, and there's definitely a quiz to see where you're at.
Daniela, this was such a valuable conversation. Thank you for showing up with honesty, heart, and practical advice we can all use, actually. I know listeners are walking away today feeling a little lighter and a lot more seen. We'll make sure we link all your info.
Great. Thank you so much, Enas.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Realtors Unfiltered, where real estate meets reality. If you're ready to buy, sell, or explore joining our team, visit us at enaslatifsalesteam.com. Until next time, keep it real.